want to thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining the PeerTAC sponsored keynote workshop we're having right now, Tools and Techniques to Create a Workplace Wellness Culture, presented by Peggy Swarbrick and Victor Luna at the inaugural Supervision Summit. I am Mariam Hussamuddin, and I will be the moderator for this session. For technical support during the session, please send a chat to Eileen Crosby. Your microphones will be muted and cameras, well, actually not for this session. Your microphones might be muted while the conversation is going on, and then it'll be available for you to open and talk when necessary. Your cameras will be on as well. But we want to ask you to remain quiet if not necessary so that we can avoid the chat distractions, and encourage you to use the chat box to introduce yourself or ask questions. This session is being recorded, and a link to the recording presentation, slides, and the handouts associated with this session will be posted on the PeerTAC website within the next 30 days. If you lose internet connection or accidentally leave the Zoom room, choose the link next to the title of this workshop in your program to rejoin. If you are seeking CE credits for this session, you cannot use your phone link. You will need to sign in. 10 minutes are reserved at the end of the session to ask questions. You will receive instructions by email from the Alliance for Rights and Recovery for completing the workshop evaluation. We encourage you to complete this evaluation to let us know how we did. If you are seeking CE credits for your participation, you will need to return the evaluation within 48 hours of receiving. Within that, PeerTAC would like to thank Peggy Swarbrick and Victor Luna. To learn more about the presenters with complete bios, visit the Supervision Summit and Leadership Forum page on the PeerTAC website and click their photo. And now, please help me in welcoming Peggy Swarbrick and Victor Luna.
Well, welcome everyone. But those of you who are on the other session, welcome back to our session here. And I'm really glad to be joined by my colleague, Victor. So I had introduced myself in the previous one. I'm Peggy Swarbrick from Collaborative Support Programs of New Jersey and Rutgers University. And Victor, do you want to say hello?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Victor Luna. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Collaborative Support Program of New Jersey. I've been a colleague of Dr. Swarbrick for the last 26 years.
Yeah, and we're so excited to be here together to join with you to really highlight, some of the, I went over some things earlier, but kind of linking back to a lot of what Liz was talking about, the wellness in the workplace wellness, creating a workplace wellness culture. That's really our, we're going to talk about tools and techniques from our lived experiences in the various roles. We have, Victor has almost 29, really close, 28, 29, right? Closer to 29 years at CSP, is it, Victor?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I have 26. So we have that experience, and also just other work that we've done in helping other places to kind of replicate some of the work that we do. Collaborative Support Program in New Jersey is a very large peer-led agency in New Jersey that employs many peers. Victor's going to talk a little bit about that in his roles and his functions as a supervisor. So, and we're also going to highlight in this presentation not only the individual supervision, we're going to go into more of the culture pieces. So that's who we are. And we really feel the workplace, we're going to highlight as we go through here, wellness in the workplace benefits everyone. We'll talk some specific things around peer support supervision, but we feel strongly that it is a really benefit to the whole workforce, as well as the people you serve and support can have a real resonating effect. So just objectives, we'll check our objectives. We're going to define what do we mean by wellness culture and wellness self-care. These are two terms I want to introduce at the beginning to kind of get us on the same page on what we're talking about. And then related back to kind of, we'll reinforce and give you some updated data, some other kind of data similar to what Liz highlighted about wellness self-care from some data that we've gathered from people in the workforce, people like yourselves who are doing this work and why this is so important to focus on the wellness culture and particularly the wellness self-care. And then hopefully things you can do to support your other peers and other members of your team. It's really a we thing. Going back to the other slide, it's we. And I'm also going to give you links to resources, but that's really what our piece is. We feel strongly we're going to help you learn on strategies and methods and examples. What Victor's going to really highlight some experiential knowledge of things that he's done, he's doing. And we're also going to give you a time also for some small break to kind of pull this together so you can generate your ideas of what you can do, you know, or either build on what you're doing already or expanding it a little bit so you can do it. It might be related to advocacy. It might be related to things you actually can do as well. So let's the big picture, starting with the big picture before we get into the nitty-gritty of the tools and the techniques. This idea of workplace wellness or wellness culture is a national effort that has been the Surgeon General. I mean, this is a report I encourage you to look at. The Surgeon General, a National Academy of Medicine, very high reputable document. I'd encourage. Workplace mental health and well-being has been seen as important for the workforce, particularly the healthcare, behavioral health workforce. So it's on a national level that the Surgeon General is highlighting this. And he also came out with another related report, I didn't put it in the slide, on isolation as well, that I think fits here as well. So two big national data looked at, awareness, stuff we've known for decades ourselves, any of us who's been around, but so important to promote that. So what we want to highlight for you is, again, from behavioral health workforce, we know about wellness. How do we think about the workplace mental health and well-being is focusing on wellness. And everyone knows me for wellness because that's something I've been doing for decades, as you can see. Wellness being that conscious, deliberate process where you become aware of and you make choices for what you are doing. Active involvement in satisfying work. That's what we want to do with this kind of supervision. We want to help people have jobs that have meaning and purpose. Have people in environments that are really supportive, work environments. We have purpose in life. That's what so much of our peer support works. But that's what wellness can be. And then we have the dimensions to kind of frame us: physical, spiritual, social, intellectual, occupational, environmental, financial. These are different areas of who I am as a person. I use the wellness lens myself personally, and then in my work, it helps me to do my work really well. And me, Peggy, Victor, all of you, do things for your wellness day to day. The habits and routines you have support your wellness. Our work is a big piece of it, but then there's this balance. So how do we really make sure that our workplace, we're coming to work, role modeling things for one another, supporting one another, but also get the support from the leadership and the agency, and have agencies be looking at us from the lens of wellness. So that's one of the things I want you to be thinking about. In your agency, how much are they focusing on your physical, spiritual, social, intellectual, your supervisor, seeing you from a wellness? How much are you role modeling that? And I have a term that I call wellness self-care, and I have a lot of resources I'll link you to for your own wellness or your own colleagues' wellness on an individual basis you can do for your wellness, creating a wellness self-care plan. What are you doing each day for yourself? And if I ask you that question, you're probably answered that, yeah, today I did this, I got here. You did like 20 things already for your wellness to get here physically, spiritually, socially. You can take a look at that. And that's one thing we encourage ourselves as peer supporters or workforce. Are we paying attention to our wellness? And then how are we bringing that in to our supervision? And then how is the supervision supporting that? And then how is the agency? That's kind of what we're going to highlight today. So there's these resources, but we know there's a difficulty attending to it. Liz pointed out the burnout, the compassion fatigue, all these things can affect us. So we want to be making sure we are focusing on our wellness and we're bringing that to the supervision. Hopefully the supervisors are focusing on the wellness of the workers. That's part of the agenda, maybe add that to the agenda, wellness, self-care check-in with each other, right? That would be a good self-disclosure thing between a supervisor or supervisee that can really help people. So there's burnout, just we know that it affected before the pandemic has put it on fire. That's why we've had the Surgeon General talking about this and lots of other data. You feel tired, you feel cynical, you feel like accomplished. We don't want burnout. That's why I think this session today and what you're hopefully going to walk away can help to prevent the burnout, and also creating the culture can really help people to prevent that burnout. As well as the work that we do is compassion. We use a lot of compassion in our work. It's a big piece of it, but we don't want to be fatigued, right? It's a positive thing, but it could deplete us, lead us to the burnout. We did some survey, myself, Amy and I did some large scale survey with people of what were some of the challenges to their wellness. And the work-life balance was a big one that comes up for the supervision that people find, that you can make sure in supervision we are paying attention, that finding time. And many people also highlighted that physical health challenges, co-occurring other were influencing their wellness to do their work in the behavioral health care workspace space. So these challenges we know exist. There's this burnout and potential challenges to the work and these risk factors, but focusing on the self-care in supervision is important. Wellness self-care, thinking about what you do each day to manage your stress, to keep yourself well. What are those positive skills that you're using each day? And I want to think about yourself. You think about your wellness and your resilience. We have stress, we have distress, we have things, but we have more resilience, right? That when we look at ourselves, we have when we're under distress, it might affect our sleep. It might affect those things that relate to the burnout. We may have co-occurring, or we may be at risk for some of these comorbid issues, or have these habits and routines that maybe are not so helpful for us. But I'd like to highlight that we have that resilience, which is what we want to focus on, again, using the strength-based approach. And we want to be focusing on self-care. And it's really important in developing that plan personally or bringing it to supervision is a big important thing you can do with supervisor or colleagues. You can even organize this among your peer support team, is helping one another set wellness self-care plans and keeping them. And I have some examples there. So, when we think about it, we want to be thinking about, why is wellness self-care important for us? I'd like for people to put into the chat, why is wellness self-care so important? Put that into the chat, especially for your work. Think about that. We'd like to hear your reflections, right? Why is it important for our work, thinking about this burnout? You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to be well to assist others. Keep yourself well. Keep that excellent. More thoughts about the great things. If you're not there for others, you can't, especially if you're supervisor, you can't be there. We can't give to others that we don't have. So it's, again, that role modeling, have that capacity, right? The analogy of the airplane mask on the plane. It's so important for our work. It helps with that vicarious trauma, compassion, inverts that compassion fatigue. Excellent. I give you, it makes it difficult to do your work when we're not paying attention. So, you could be doing yourself, getting yourself triggered, getting yourself stressed if we're not doing. So paying attention and knowing, and Victor's going to talk about some of the practices a supervisor can do, making sure people take time off, take those breaks. So important. So think about it, why it's important, and think about what you're doing, and what you can do, and hopefully some of these tools. So focusing on self-care is just important, and really what I think in supervision or supervisee, bring this up on the agenda, using the wellness lens, thinking about your needs. I like to think about the wellness wheel as helping me to assess physically, spiritually, socially, not just the physical or the emotional. Think about all of the dimensions coming into play when we're thinking about our self-care, and when we're thinking about wellness culture. Wellness culture is not just that we're giving everybody benefits are important, but beyond equitable pay, other kinds of things that are things that we do about knowledge we can help. So wellness lens, think about the 8 dimensions, and really, really important to think about that in our thing. So self-care is so important about wellness dimensions. I want to tell you a fun fact that's so important, right? That it was even in Costco magazine. Costco magazine is talking about self-care from the 8 dimensions. And this is a page my colleague Sylvia Kelpie sent to me. She got it in the mail last year. Costco even is putting the 8 dimensions, as you can see at the other side. So wellness, self-care is important for our work, and it's important on a real larger basis. So just think about that for yourself. In creating your plan, I encourage you, I have these documents, these are resources that you can use for yourself, right? That you can help to guide your pieces around your self-care. That could potentially be things you could bring up in supervision, or a supervisor, you can bring these tools to the supervisees. Maybe in a team meeting, you do educative supervision with your team. I also will share to you, again, we're getting the definition of a tool that you can take your pulse. I have this inventory. It's a simple inventory that you get to take your pulse to see where you are physically, spiritually, socially, intellectually, occupational, all the dimensions, to see where your strengths are, highlight them, and then perhaps build them. So Victor's so there's the individual level supervision, right? Of creating a culture, focusing on the wellness dimensions for ourselves, for our colleagues. Creating wellness self-care plans is one strategy tool that I'm encouraging you to think about. And what I'd like to do is move into Victor telling you a little bit more about his role. This is something I do, is I do lots of tools and techniques for people to do together in groups. So this is one I'm sharing with you. Victor's now going to share a little bit about what he's done in his role to support people with lived experience as a supervisor.
Thank you, Peggy. I want to talk a little bit about my own experience as a supervisor of peers. I worked for a CSP for the last almost 29 years. And my role for 22 years was Chief Financial Officer. And usually you think a position like a Chief Financial Officer is nothing to do with peer support and supervise. Well, in CSP, we have right now currently around 300 employees, and probably around 70% of them are self-identified people with life experience, we call life expertise. And that is going around all departments on the agency, from the executive levels all the way to the front end staff. And in the fiscal department, almost half of the fiscal department are people with life experience. And I remember when I started working in CSP, what attracted me to CSP, I was used to work in community development in New York, was the fact that they promote the value of peer. They recognize the people with life experience have tremendous value, and they are citizens, and they are contributors to the society. And then I came to work, and then because I don't have any training about supervised peers, I started working, and I started thinking that the peer need more support and more you don't feel well today, just stay home. And suddenly I found myself, instead of supporting peers, I was enabling them, because I was expecting less from them than from the other staff. And I remember having this conversation with Peggy. I said, no, everybody should have what we call a universal design of policy. The expectation should be no different in the financial world. It's a bookkeeper has to do bookkeeping job. The question is, how can I support? And I remember early in my struggle supervising an individual with life experience, I say, okay, the best is, how can I support you? And that we starting develop some policies in the organization about how can we be flexible to support individuals. Most of the time, what they need is flexibility. And we always, I call contingency plans. But as a group, we develop contingency plan. But that will apply anybody in the department. Doesn't matter if you have a life experience or not. We all have a struggle. We all have difficulties. And we all have time that we need break. And then as an organization, we develop each department have a contingency plan for a short period of time. If somebody cannot work all of the hours they're supposed to work, how can we cover that? And in that way, we support each other. I had the benefit that my boss was a peer. The first executive director, actually, previous executive director, CSP, are people with life experience, and they always promote, and they always help me keep in my eye, in my brain, that the value of the life experience. And that experience helped me now as a chief executive officer to frame, be sure that all of the policy of the organization, and when we're talking from benefits, when we're talking for pay, when we're talking about workload, all of that should be framed within a wellness and the A dimension. We are not in the business to burn out people and make people sick. We are in the business to promote wellness and growth. But later on, I'm going to talk very specific about what we are doing, what concrete stuff we put in place. Peggy, I pass to you.
Yeah, so Victor's kind of highlighted some things about, you know, from an individual basis, supervising people, having that experience. And again, all of you are new to this. In a sense, there's learning curves happen. So one of the things you want to think about learning curve, but the key about is having that reflective practice, as I talked about, reflecting on and getting a colleague or someone, you know, coming to trainings like this, finding the resources that have been mentioned to kind of learn how to self-correct and do it. And then on the individual basis, supervising, but then also thinking about the culture. And many of the things we're going to talk about are things that are going to, I wanted to frame that it is about the culture, creating the culture, not only just the peer support. You don't want to do things separate. You want to create the culture of this, because there can be animosity when, and we did see this even in some of our experiences animosity when people felt people were getting specialized treatment when it was something that everybody could really benefit from. So, you know, if you have questions, please come about. So when we think about the wellness, we're definitely thinking about keeping our definition of wellness and wellness self-care in mind. But when we think about how do we bring that to the culture, how do you help that? Because a culture is something a little bit more. It's, it's a way that, it's thinking about the culture. It's that assumptions that are developed by the group. So you might have to look at your culture, and we're going to encourage you to think about how wellness culture focused your organization is. And you may have a role in further developing that in your own spaces. How does it deal with things? How does it deal with the stresses? So thinking about the culture and thinking about the culture, right? The patterns of basic assumption that the group develops, and how do you build a wellness culture? How do you get people to believe this together and focus on making guide the living what you do? And what a culture does, when we think about a culture, it's a function of the stability of the group, the length of the time the group has been together, the experiences. And so again, when you think about your wellness culture, right, you know, how stable this is, how prevailing it is in your culture. Can you tell us a little bit about how focused is your agency on a wellness culture on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being not so, really not there. But in terms of a wellness culture, how strong is your wellness culture in your organizational, in your organization? A 4, good. So we have some people who are pretty high there. Let's see, we got a couple more. What we have some people saying not so good, 1. What other 3 to 4, kind of getting there, 4. So people are like a 4. So there is some things already happening. It sounds like 4, lots of 4s in a wellness culture, 3s and 4s. Excellent. Yeah, what are your, and maybe you want to put into the chat, what is the what, like, in terms of what a 1, we have some lower. Okay, great. That's why we'll get you in learning from each other to hear what you're having. Like, and what are some of the things, how do you know, what are some of the things you can observe, right, in your wellness culture that you know that it's, anyone want to share or unmute yourself to share? How do you know your culture is either 4 or 5 or a 1? Anyone want to share? Unmute yourself. So we have like a range here.
I can say because hi, my name is Kim.
Hi, Kim.
I'm a peer specialist supervisor, and I'm actually going to use the thing in a group that we have at my job that all our peers get together and we talk about our feelings about us and working outside of the job, you know, to keep the wellness.
Yeah.
But what I can say is as far as the culture, it keeps changing because people keep changing, and you can't stay steady with the culture because the people keep changing, and then the rules keep changing, and it works with your mental health. And as a peer, and I'm trying to peer supervise peers, it's kind of hard when everything keeps changing and they're being pressured more and I'm being pressured more to get more papers in and more this and more that, and we're trying to be peers and work with the mental health, and just being a peer to someone is totally different than a case manager, and it's hard to get that culture into your job when their driven focus is money. Every job is money, but a peer's job is just to go in caring. And my aspect, and maybe I you know, everybody say I need more training, but you hired me to be a peer, and none of my peers call in complaining about what I'm doing. I have an exemplary record as a peer specialist, but as a supervisor, I might be failing because I wasn't taught how to supervise peers. That may be something I may like. I'm going to take some of this and utilize it to support them better.
Yeah. And you can be the change in the environment. We're all can be that agent of change in our environments, or agent of excellence. Thank you for sharing that, Kim. Cassandra.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I work for the 988 call center as a resource for the organization, and it really can be challenging because one thing that we've identified is that as peers, we're constantly being put in this clinical box that we're always having to abdicate away from because that's where the funding really lies. And so we spend so much time just educating, abdicating, kind of pushing back for any for any individuals that are, you know, trying to instill a little bit more of a clinical practice. So, you know, when I say 4, I give that for the peer department in my team. And, you know, I can definitely lower rate some of the other ones because they do look at the statistics and where that money comes in, but there's really no hybrid that we've been able to identify thus far.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And then keep doing what you're doing because you can be the role model for the rest.
Well, but actually, I see him doing almost nothing during closed time, but that needs to be managed because what are you going to have him do during that time when you have him?
Oh, somebody's unmute yourself. Oh, yeah. So no, thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, we have.
Hi.
Hi.
I take I guess you talked about that at the end, a hybrid, Cassandra. Kind of, I take sort of a different approach when it comes to the numbers. I try to, you know, unite my team around what our mission is, around the deliverables to a certain extent, to like what the kind of, you know, what the numbers that we do have to meet so that, you know, we can do the things that are above and beyond the numbers. So really just to try to keep the team focused is kind of like, you know, what are our goals, both in terms of the numbers and in terms of actually like what we want to accomplish in the community and what we want to accomplish with individuals. So kind of like, I think there's, you know, there's something to like meeting, you know, what, you know, sort of like
something
meeting, you know, meeting to the goals basically. And that's that. So Cassandra made me think of that basically.
Bryant, and then AJ.
Sure. Thank you so much for letting me share. I'm Bryant Pugh, statewide training coordinator for the Mental Health Empowerment Project. The wellness culture at Mental Health Empowerment Project is incredible because they give a lot of wellness. We carry it with whatever we do. But I'm referring to a previous job I had that I will not mention the agency. The agency from the top down did not promote wellness, even though we were told to take care of people in the community. So we often would come together as teams and say, oh my God, you know, they're not taking care of us. How are we supposed to promote that wellness, even though we're not being taken care of?
Right.
And so what I found was that I had an old supervisor at that job that would pull me aside and say, how are you doing? And that helped. So I really resonated with someone who shared earlier about how even though the agency as a whole didn't promote that wellness culture,
Yeah.
subgroups, we would come together and we would have to create our own groups to support each other so we could carry that message into the community.
Great.
So
And
that's what I wanted to share.
love
So
it.
I know
Thank you
some
so
people
much.
are probably experiencing that.
Yes, a lot. Thank you so much. It's probably very common, and you can be the role model. You're the role model of that. And I think that's where, and you can build the momentum. We'll have AJ and then, yeah, AJ.
Yeah, I'm actually from Wisconsin, and we started transforming our system in 1996 from medical model to recovery model. And peer support specialists started being educated in 2003. I actually got my certification in Michigan before that. But the change in the culture has to come from every individual in that culture. And peer specialists in Wisconsin have their own educational peer supervision, but they also attend the clinical supervision. And the reason for doing that is to ensure that that culture change is being done. I can remember first sitting in clinical and they were talking about people by name. The peer is not in the room. We don't talk about them unless they're present. Let's talk. And so part of my job was that transformation piece. Let's talk about the challenge you're having with that person and not the person themselves. So it's very important for us not only to do our own job when we're with the peers, but also we're a huge part of that culture change, because that culture change comes with each individual and those fundamentals of wellness and recovery.
Yeah.
So I not only do that on a local basis, I also present every year at our regional crisis intervention conference. And I do a thing, about it starts with the individual. I also teach peer ethics and boundaries at that conference every other year. And sure, I get some pushback from some of the clinical supervisors in the room, but I go back to, Q-tip, questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it, how that makes you feel, so it has to be a total culture shift, or it's hard for the peers to do their job effectively unless you're in a peer organization, as I am now. But I still work with the system. In fact, we just put peer specialists into the crisis services. And I actually go into those crisis services as the executive director of the Wisconsin Association of Peer Specialists. And try to do kind of an organizational culture change, and where they might need to change what they're doing so that the peer can effectively do their job and not become systemized. So with that, I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I think it's a lot of you all have different experiences with, again, bring to the point of our role. What can we do? Like, what's the we or the collective we, each of it? So how can we really create that wellness culture, right? Thinking about the shared mission around, particularly the mission around wellness. How are we helping the agency to change? Okay, they're changing a lot, so let's change them in this direction. How do we think about the investment in the individual and thinking about the respect for diversity? So thinking about culture and thinking about when you all highlighted earlier in your definition of the wellness and wellness self-care, some of you brought up that you can't drink, pour from the cup. Like, really, what are we pouring into our cup and how are we supporting it? How are we using the 8 dimensions to frame that? And how are we creating a culture that values the self-care, the wellness self-care of all staff? And I love hearing that many of you, again, who are having the tensions in it are role modeling it in your space and place, which is important. So in wellness culture, one of the things we want to help think about now, we talked about some of these individual level things. I want to shift it, and Victor's going to give some examples of from the leadership perspective, organizationally. So we have all different levels of people here. Organizationally, what has been done and tried, and things that we've done that have worked, or challenges. And then these are things either you can support, you could be bringing back to your organization, or things that you can do to think about. And then we're going to do some brainstorming about what you all can walk away from. Victor.
Yeah, it's great comment to everybody. And we are as an executive in an organization, and as my position, we always have the I call the two forces. A lot of regulation from funding from government, and sometimes try to switch around. That it's a balance that we have to find. And it's in CSP what we did. Let me tell what we did. I think something is in the background. It's everybody can hear me? Okay, I hope so. The first thing that we did, we basically developed the values of the organization values that match the peer values. And for example, our values say, for example, is relationship as the means for growth and connection. That means good supervisor have good relationship. The relationships are the foundation of the supervisor. We talk about the other values, the potential, people's potential and their ability to grow and change. As a supervisor, everybody should think about the supervisee, their growth. We don't want the staff stay study for years and years and years and years in the same position. To do with that, we develop within the organization opportunities to grow to different positions. And we talk about self-sufficiency, the dignity and diversity, and so on and so forth. Actually, we developed a whole program we call COVA, Keeping Our Values Alive, and we train every single staff. Doesn't matter you are life experience or no life experience, if you are an executive level or no executive level, everybody had to go to this training, and what's very systematic was 25 minutes every month, and take one of each of these values and say, how can I put in practice in my job in the organization? What that did, it developed a culture that we are in a playing field, that everybody had to promote the wellness. Other thing that we did, we developed we call a retention and wellness task force. We asked staff from different departments get together as a group, and none of the executive level was in that group, only the staff. And they put a report back to the executive, say, how can we make this agency more wellness? What you need from the executive. Out of that, the very concrete task came out, and we implemented this. It's getting feedback. But basically, like somebody mentioned, I think in the chat, has to come from the bottom down, the wellness culture. And that starts with the board. And one suggestion is maybe in CSP, we have the benefit that 70% of the board are people with life experience. But not every organization has that structure. But maybe talk to the board one presentation about the contribution of the peers within the organization. And as a background, as a financial person, I always say wellness is an investment. As an organization, yes, you have to put some money on it sometimes, cost a little bit, but the investment is much higher. Why? If the staff is well, is healthy, is not burned out, their productivity is better, and at the end, the people they serve will do better. You prevent turnover in staff and organization. And the last, I think Liz mentioned in her presentation that the turnover on staff, the era of the resignation, cost tremendous amount of money to the organization. Hire the staff, train the staff, it costs. Other thing that we say, if we say life expertise have value, that should match with salaries. And we always say, peer labor is not cheap labor, period. We contribute as much as every other professional in the work that we're doing. That's why we try to have equitable salaries based on the functionality, not necessarily in the credential. And for us in CSP, life experience is almost a credential, like a bachelor, like a master, it's a credential. And we try to recognize that when we design the salary scale. Other piece that we do had to do with the health insurance. And CSP costs tremendous amount of dollars, the health insurance. To give it, we almost 100% insure the staff, the single staff. They pay $25 every 2 weeks to the health insurance. And that covers the medical, prescription, and everything. Costs a lot of money. But why? We cannot have a staff that cannot afford to take care of the physical health. It doesn't work. Because it's too costly, because it's $75 to go to a specialist, and I don't have that money. And then now what are they gonna do? If the person have a mental health treatment therapy, and they have to pay $75. How can they do that? We develop a health insurance plan that allow that basically almost cover 100% with a few contributions from the staff. Other thing that we do, in top of the health insurance, we have we call Health TSU. I don't know if you know that. It's a program, basically, it's a teledoc. And we allow, if you starting getting sick, we allow staff use their time where they're working to call their doctors. Out of the the insurance doesn't cost them absolutely nothing, and they can prescribe and they take care of that earlier. Prevention. Other thing that we do, we incentivize, for example, somebody's in the air.
Somebody's
Yeah.
yourself, yeah.
Okay. The other piece that we do is, for example, we giving the staff do the annual checkup, and the insurance confirm that. We don't receive the information. It's the insurance company. We send an incentive, a gift card, because you take care of yourself. The other thing we do, we try to be sure that the workload is not so high that burnout. And my approach always has been this. They say, if you can do your job in 40 hours, it's one or two problems. It's too much work, or the person doesn't know how to struggle manage their time. Well, if you work and the issue is not the struggle manage your time, then you have to adjust the way the workload. And I always keep my eyes on the high performers. Because high performers could easily burn out. And that's why I'm a big promoter. Everybody had to take vacation. When I see staff that say, I don't have time to take vacation, it's so much work to have to do, then something is wrong here, because you know what's going to be the end effect of that if somebody doesn't take care of that. That's why we have like 30 days time off, paid time off for the staff, plus the holidays. And we encourage people to take time off. As an organization, we do that. Cost money to the organization? Yes, cost money. But like I mentioned earlier, it's an investment for us. And because that helped tremendously in the retention. And a lot of time when people left the organization, they always say it's another career in their life. And we're happy because they are going out with all of the skills that we train. Other thing is, we do supervisor training, peer training, conference training internally in the organization, and we require every staff to do them. Doesn't matter you're a peer or you are not a peer. Because that developed the whole culture in the agency about peer. I remember at one time even was the pullback for people say, oh, you're doing a special treatment for peers. And we actually did a survey about that. And then we started addressing the situation. That's why when you establish policy, you have to be sure that it's universal policies. Because identify yourself or not as a peer. We all have a struggle. We all are in danger to burn out, and we all have to take care of ourselves. We promote wellness as an organization. And the other piece is we try, when every time open opportunity happens in the organization, we try to give that opportunity to the staff to grow. We first look inside before we bring people from outside. And that promote a culture of inclusive. The other thing that we always very careful, it's very easy to run and establish ton of policy and procedures that put everybody inside the box. We try to avoid that as much as possible. Yes, we need policy. Yes, we need procedures. But when you put everybody inside a box, you stop creativity. And one of the things that I learned from our colleagues is the creativity, the innovations that we allow because we have a flexibility within the organization. And I think overall, I cannot, at the executive level, I always say when somebody push back and say your health insurance costs you so much, and I say that's my investment. I don't want to give in $2 to a staff and then charge a staff $1 because they have to pay for the health insurance. It's an investment that promotes wellness within the organization. And that's why when we do recruitment, we usually don't have challenges recruiting peers. They usually it's fine to find, they tend to stay, and the retention is very high. And like Peggy mentioned multiple times in her presentation, we are in a playing level. I'm not better than a peer. The office is open, we listen it, people are open to talk about it, and we try to implement ideas from all of the staff. I think, Peggy, you can take it over.
Yeah, so Victor's talked about some organizational level things of strategies, and many of you kind of some things are in the chat and everything. I'm going to highlight and move to, because we talked about those individual things, the wellness, self-care. I want to highlight here for you. We're going to move to that in a minute. This is some resources. I want to guide you to some resources. There's for creating the culture, there's 3 levels of resources. I'm going to guide you, and you can go on this website. Here, there's peer support approaches, individual approaches, and organizational approaches. This is a great website that we developed, again, right along this of building a workplace culture that gives you some organizational resources. So if you're a manager or a supervisor, there's some really great tools and tips and downloadable things that you can use. There's some definitely individual level things that kind of relate to the stuff that I showed you at the beginning, things you can help about self-care. And then there's some really cool things that I don't, outside the scope of this training, peer support approaches. And I'm really excited to tell you another time, if you want to follow up, is in my work at Rutgers. I've actually helped work with a physician on developing a peer support program for physicians initially, but now we do the peer support program across healthcare professionals. And that's another way to build the culture. We'll put that in the chat for sure, the website there. Build the culture of wellness in the work. And so again, this is stuff individual. There's resources that really focus on the 8 dimension, the organizational strategies, and then there's peer support approaches that are this for things that you can do to help one another. So I'll put that in while we're going to go into our little exercise. I'll put that up there. But somebody says, how can we creatively, within organizations, meeting the grants, keep the balance? You're wanting some ideas about the balance. Well, that's great, Roxana. And because the next phase of what we want to do is we've highlighted for you we're going to go into some breakouts for a couple of minutes together to talk about that. What could you do to support the wellness culture, support your wellness? What do you keep doing? Maybe what do you want to stop doing, or what do you want to start doing? Think about yourself, what's in your control. And in your breakout, you're going to think about what you can do now without permission, right? Like you don't need permission. Even just advocating, that's not permission. You can speak up on that. But what do you do without permission to be able to build that workplace wellness culture? So that's our task, is to be into the breakout for about 8 minutes. One person kind of guide the conversation. We have about 100. We might want to put about 6 people into the breakouts at a time, maybe 5 to 6 in it, just so you have enough time to talk with either. Can you start doing? What do you want to stop doing? What do you want to build doing? And want to have come out with a great ideas from each other to share. And then we'll kind of check in with you after that time, maybe put somebody be able to put it into the chat and have some discussion. But I feel like it's important for you now to hear what we've said, some of what people have talked about. Get into your breakouts and think about what you can do. Start doing, stop doing. What can you do, especially around thinking about the wellness, physical, spiritual, social. Keep that model in mind. So that's what we'll have in our breakout now. And then we're going to come back and hear from everybody. So,
and how long did you say you wanted that for, Peggy?
8 minutes.
8
Some
minutes?
people, yeah, some people might not have, yeah, but yeah, that would be, 8 minutes.
And you only wanted about 6 people in each room?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yep. Okay, and then some people don't have a camera, but somebody doesn't have it for the breakout. So so you can stay with us and we'll talk to you.
Okay, so here we go.
I'll stay here just in case people don't. Yeah, okay, so we can broadcast. What can you keep doing, start doing, or stop doing? And could we broadcast that? I'll put that in the yeah. So what can you keep doing, start doing, stop doing in there? Yeah.
All right, tell me that again.
I have it in the chat. What can you keep doing, start doing, or stop doing to promote workplace wellness culture? Oops, sorry, I didn't see it. It didn't go to it didn't go. Sorry. Okay. I'll go into one of them. I'm going to go into I'll get to Hey, I know it was a short amount of time to be gathered to talk about what you are, what can you continue to do, start doing or stop doing. You probably didn't get enough time to hear from everybody, but I'd love to hear from some of the groups that shared what kind of things that you identified. If you either want to post it into the chat, or if you want to post it into the chat, or you want to unmute yourself. We'll hear from some of the there were some really interesting things in our group. So does anybody want to put into the chat some of the things people had, or anybody so it's what you kept doing, what you said you were gonna continue. Yeah, she. Yeah. Or Jennifer, we have,
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I was just in a group and I was talking, but I don't know if everyone heard. But for me, I'm new into the role that I'm in, fairly new. I started in November, hired for one role, someone left, and then I was phased into two roles simultaneously, peer services and core. The space that we're occupying right now, we're under mental health Association of Columbia Greene County, but we have different locations that we all operate out of. And the place that we were in for many years had been a restaurant, I think. And so we had absorbed and kind of inherited a whole bunch of stuff, just things. And the place hadn't been painted in a while. And I think everyone was doing their best to work with the space that we had been given. And one of the things that I found that was really important was like the place that we come to work every day, the environment that we're in every day. What are we looking at? The colors that are around us. I think all of those things play a part, making sure that we somehow feel supported and feel good about where we are so that we can hold safe space for others.
Nice. Yeah, that's fantastic, because your space that you occupy, making sure the environment you're looking at, and paying attention and thinking about ways you can organize that in a way. I love that. And related to that, a couple of people I love these ideas in the chat. We should definitely put your things in there. We'll try to hear from others, but had some great ideas. The wellness room, different people, our group talks a little bit about a wellness room. Jesse, you want to mention a little bit about that? That sounded fantastic.
So our agency created a wellness room. It's a place where we can go if we need to step away, if we're having a moment. I'm an adult peer provider. I also provide frontline work as a peer provider. So oftentimes, we can get mentally drained in those moments where we just need to step away, kind of gather our own thoughts. It has like a salt lamp, it has a couch. It has different things in there. We have plants. It's just a calming room that we can step into if we need to take 10, 15 minutes away from our workload for a moment.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen some really creative ways with the wellness rooms, and a couple of other people saying that they're thinking about people. Oh yeah, here's the resources. I think I'm just going to put this resource I had in the chat. For those of you, and we'll send it later. And it's also going to be a resource up on PeerTAC as well. These are great. I love these different things. People, and I can share some examples because I was working with a family support organization that did some amazing wellness rooms. And think about the break rooms, right? It's your break room coming your wellness room. There was also some talk about lunch, just bring lunch together, taking the time for the lunch, and then sharing each other's different experiences of the kinds of foods people have. So those are really nice. And some others have talked about the rooms, and maybe that could be something we can encourage in PeerTAC to put those kind of resources about how do you set up that room, or how do you set up those time for those lunches that we forget to take often, right? We have some other great things here too. See who else? Let's see, we have in-person events. I think that's big, Andrea. That's been a big thing too with people's isolation, the in-person stuff versus it was great with all of the virtual, but people are kind of really yearning for that connection with each other. Wellness check-ins at team meetings, great. I love that. Icebreakers and using some icebreakers. I have a really cool exercise. It's called wellness self-care kind of bingo. So that's like a bingo card thing where you go around and ask each other these questions, and people love it. We do it a lot, and it gets a lot of things. People said they're supportive of the PTO and work kind of social events there. I like that. Open door policies, really great ideas into the chat. Keeping the boundaries for the lunchtime. Oh, look at these. We have to definitely, Miriam, keep these and post these and share this with everyone. Do a kudos meeting to express the accomplishments. I was even, I'm part of something else at Rutgers. We did a Joy at Work program where we gave people funding to do a project that builds focused on joy at work, build a collegiality, and they did that. They have like a board, people could put like a positive affirmation board where everybody could see that, and or people would put positive feedback about each other. So that's those kind of things publicly sharing are really important. Yes, and then deciding what you're going to have for lunch and just spending time talking about that, fun. But these are all cultural things. These are all the things, team walks. These things, it's just like wellness being a conscious, deliberate process where I become aware of and make a choice each day. You are doing things each day for the wellness, and for the wellness culture, you're all doing these things. I think that's basically, again, very important, these small things, but they're not small, they're huge. Victor, any observations you have about what you've seen in the chat or some of these things, that amazing ideas people are sharing here?
A lot of great idea. I love the wellness room. I
Yeah.
try to find a space. I'm in the administrative office, try to find a space for that. But I think peer as an organization, we have employees or colleagues. We shouldn't separate peers and non-peers. Everybody should be treated equally and respect equally and pay equally according to their job. And I think it's a great opportunity. And if your board doesn't know a lot about peers, maybe something I suggest, go to the chain of command and try to get in the agenda for the board meeting and talk about what you do every day. And you're gonna see the change in their perception about the role of the peer. And it's an honor to be with all of you today. And thank you for the work you do every day.
Yeah, and I think somebody said having the snacks there, that's so important. As Victor said, and maybe even going to the board to get resources for the kind of wellness initiatives they might be able to support. At Creamore, you have a room and it's gym. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love these different ideas. I just put into the chat two other links that are some wellness. Oh, humor, that's free, right? Free. Laughing is important. Smiling is important. Just a smile in our day-to-day can affect the culture, right? Are people smiling? That might be even an indication of how many people are smiling, how many people are laughing. That's a good way to gauge. When I was asked, like, on a 1 to 5 scale, that could be an indicator of our how are we supporting each other's wellness. So I put some more resources. Yeah, the wellness bingo piece. Send me an email. I'll send you my email, and I'll send you the file for that. I'll send that file to you. I'll send my email here. I'll send that file, and you can do that game. It's a really fun game to do as a team building, or you can do it with people in your leadership. That's just a really good it really gets you back to the self-care. So, we want to thank everybody. We wanted to have a good balance of like giving you some information and then hearing from each of you, right? Each of you being able to, share the amazing work that you do, because you're doing a lot. So we were talking about the wellness culture, self-care, the importance of it, and strategies, individually and organizationally. You got a sense of that between me and Victor. So we feel like, we really want to give everybody the time to do a wellness break now that you've been 2 sessions in the morning and now. And we thank you very much for your time, and we hope that this was helpful. And we definitely feel that, you have a lot of things you're doing already. Continue to keep doing that. We might want to start thinking about what you want to do more of that you heard here. And then there's also, we didn't even talk about the stop doing things. Those are the things we might want to sometimes be, be mindful of the things we stop doing as well. But we want to thank you, Miriam. If there's anything else we need to do for the housekeeping, I think we're just at time.
Yes, thank you so much. That was amazing, amazing. I want to thank the group that I was in for participating and all you others who showed up at this. It was amazing. We want to thank you, Peggy Swarbrick and Victor Luna, for this educational, informative, and empowering presentation. Thank you for our support at OMH, our partners at the Alliance for Rights and Recovery, and thank you to all of you that participated, who took the time out of your busy day to attend this session. I want to remind you, in order to earn your CE credits for this participation in this session, you must complete the workshop evaluation that you receive by email from the Alliance within 48 hours. This session is worth 1 credit, 1.25 if there's, since it is a workshop. To access your next session, choose a title and click the link next to the final submit program. A recording of this session is expected to be available within 30 days of the PeerTAC website. On the PeerTAC website, thank you for your participation in the inaugural PeerTAC Supervision Summit. We hope to see you again next year. Take care.
Is this the lunch hour, or are we going right into another session?
Let me look at the calendar for you.
It goes into another session, 12:15.
12:15, okay.
Yes.
And then
What
you
time
get to
is
break.
No,
what
no.
time is lunch?
No, actually.